Hi, this is Jeff Stevenson with VinoPRO Incorporated, and this is the second in our series of webinars where we're going to be talking about selling wine over the telephone. And in this segment, we're going to really focus on how to sell and what you do and what you say and how you overcome objections. And my staff, both of these guys that I'm going to introduce here in a second, have been doing this for years. They sold wine over the phone for us, and were highly, highly successful. So they actually know what they're talking about. The first speaker is going to be Donnie Varner, my general manager. And the second speaker is going to be Kyle Lees, our vice president of sales. So now I'm going to turn it over to Donnie Varner.
Hey there. So yeah, my name is Donnie Varner. I've been here for about 10 years, and we were doing some math the other day. We have sold almost $100 million of wine direct to consumer over the phone for wineries. Pretty amazing when you're talking about each one of those sales is literally a conversation that we had. So I'm pretty excited. I've literally trained hundreds of salespeople to sell wine over the phone. So we get to give you some of our secrets today and open up our vault. So pretty excited. So we're going to talk about selling wine over the phone, and we're going to talk about some of the basics here. So let's get started. So who should you call? Well, really, we think about customers in three different ways. They're either wine club members, they're recent purchasers, or they're what we like to say is a blast from the past, right? You're going to want to focus on those wine club members. My guess is that your staff currently is not going to be able to get to those older customers that aren't going to buy as much anyway. So you want to focus on the low-hanging fruit. And for most wineries, that's going to be your wine club members, your current wine club members, or former wine club members. These are your biggest fans. They're the ones that are going to be most receptive to the phone call and are going to be happy to hear from you and want to talk about wine. If you do get to the second or the third, it is actually not legal to call someone that has not made a purchase from you in more than 18 months. You do not have an existing business relationship with that person. So I would not suggest that you do that without some kind of a software. So just words of advice there. So the next question is, when should you call? Well, you want to make sure you're reaching out to club members, and it's always a good time to call club members. There's a lot of misinformation out there about calling club members during a club shipment time, and that's totally wrong. When you call someone before a club shipment, you are actually able to fix a lot of the problems that you might have ahead of time before they call into your winery. So you might be able to fix an address, a credit card, or even preempt a cancellation before they want to cancel when the shipment's already on its way, okay? And you want to be strategic in all of these things and how you're calling, especially when the difference between calling business numbers, home numbers, mobile, etc. Now, the unique situation that we're in with all this pandemic happening, guess what? Most people are home. They are home and they are twiddling their thumbs and they're doing nothing. They cannot wait to get a call from you. So really, this is not as important as it would on a normal day. Most people are waiting by the phone and hoping that someone calls them, like a winery. That's fun. But you do want to pay attention to the time zones that they're in. So remember that when you're calling someone on the East Coast, there's a 3-hour difference. And most of our sales happen in the company between 3 and 6 p.m. You want to catch people when they're having dinner, or about to have dinner, they have a glass of wine in their hand. That's the best time that you want to talk to people. Earlier, it doesn't work nearly as well. It's really hard to talk about wine when you're calling someone at 8 or 9 in the morning. So just remember the product that you're selling and when you're calling. So the next one is, what should you say? Well, you should always be asking questions. I actually play a game with my staff called the question game. And literally, I test these guys to have conversations where the only thing that they do is ask questions. And it's really hard. It's really hard because you want to answer it. You should just keep asking questions during the entire call. Now, I know that the topic of conversation right now is what's happening out there in the world with the virus. And it's impossible to avoid that conversation. You need to address it. You need to talk about it because they're going to want to talk about it. Spend a couple of minutes on it. It's fine. And then you want to start getting into the real questions about about wine or any other topic. It could be family, it could be work, it could be, where they want to travel when this whole thing is over, and where they're going to go on their next honeymoon or whatever it might be. The next thing you want to do is you want to sell wine. Obviously, that is the goal, but it shouldn't be the first thing that you talk about. because you want to build relationships. The way that you do that is by asking questions, talking about family, building a little rapport. There's nothing, you don't want to be insensitive first off about what's happening. But the other thing is it's just not very good sales tactic. Just go in immediately and start asking about cases of wine. So you want to build a little rapport before you start talking about wine and start talking about sale. The next one is build excitement. When I train these the salespeople on the phone here, I have a slide that says be excited, and you can sell so much wine by just being excited. Oh my gosh, can you believe this 2012 Cabernet? I mean, it is just tasting so amazing right now. It's unbelievable. Being excited is going to help you sell wine. And a sense of urgency doesn't have to be, please buy this right now. You can use words like only. You can talk about how it's a limited production. You can talk about how it's a reserve, or we're pulling out some library wines. Those are all great sense of urgency words to use on the phone call. And the next one, obviously my favorite, ask for the sale, always be closing. You want to make sure that you're always asking for the sale. And it doesn't have to be an aggressive manner. You know, why don't we put a case of the Cabernet together for you? That's not hard to do. And my favorite all-time sales question, are you still shipping to 123 Main Street? The reason why I love this question so much is because there's not really a chance for the customer to say no. So when you say, hey, John, it was great talking with you. Let's put a case of the Cabernet together. Are you still shipping in 123 Main Street? They're going to do one of two things. They're going to say yes, which is great, or they're going to say no, and they're going to give you their new address. And guess what that means? You have a sale. That's what that means. So it's one of my all-time favorites. And one of Kyle's favorite lines, he's about to speak in a few minutes here, but you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. You might as well ask for the sale because you're not going to get another chance. So where should you focus your energy? Well, you want to be selling customers you want to be selling wine to customers that they enjoy. I know that it is tempting for wineries to want to move and talk about products when you go into your cellar or your wine storage and you see huge pallets of wine you should have sold last year. But the truth is, you want to talk about what they want to talk about. So if you try to talk about Chardonnay and the customer doesn't like Chardonnay, they're going to be turned off. And you want to make sure that you're talking about wines that they enjoy. And I know that seems obvious, but you need to ask questions to get there. You don't want to just go into the call saying, I have a great Chardonnay, when they might not even like Chardonnay. So very simple stuff, but make sure you're asking questions to figure out what wines they enjoy. The next one I spoke about a little bit. You want to be building relationships with these customers over the phone. This is not going to be the first time you speak to these people. So you want to make sure that you ask questions, get to know them, take great notes, ask about their kids, talk about their dog. I mean, get to know them on a personal level, and that's going to build relationships for the long haul. You're going to be able to increase your wine club retention, so they're actually going to be in the club for longer if you do that, if you do those things. And the next one is upselling. You know, upselling is a dirty word. For some, it isn't when you do it in the right way. You don't have to be aggressive, but when someone says, yeah, I'll take a 6-pack of Cabernet, you can say, why don't we make it a case, Jim? Or, you know what, pick up a second case, Jim, and we'll split the shipping. It's really easy to do an upsell if you're not being aggressive. You can do it in a really easy way. And the worst thing that happens is the customer says no, and you end up with what you started with. The next thing we're going to talk about here, I'm going to let Kyle Leese take over, the VP of Sales for VinoPRO. Take it away, Kyle.
Awesome. Thanks, Donnie. I wanted just to kind of dive a little deeper here, talk some strategy. I think that the path of the sale, kind of, if you understand where this conversation is going to go, where you start, and understand where the goal and where the finish line is, and how you get there, you kind of have a roadmap that you'll be in much better shape. So, Donnie talked about, you know, if you start a phone call, you don't want to. The first thing you want to do is not to just be asking for a sale, right? You don't want to come out of the gate and start asking for business. There's a time and a place for each of these pieces. So the very first part of this conversation that you're going to use is your introduction. It's actually, when you're doing telesales, you're making a phone call to somebody, you've got to kind of state who you are and who you work with. So having a great script in the beginning is wonderful because you build that into that. But when you are doing your introduction, you kind of want to use this as the brickwork, the groundwork for your whole conversation moving forward. So your script should essentially say, hello, this is me, this is who I work for, and this is why I'm calling. So you can make that version, specific to, whatever the circumstances are. Hey, Bob, this is Kyle calling with such and such winery. We're just reaching out here because, we're getting ready for spring. We've got our spring shipment coming up, and I wanted to talk to you about a few options. You can kind of outline your script based on what the current scenario is, but your script should essentially introduce who you are and give the customer an idea of what's the reason for my call. That's always the right way to go when you're going to start the conversation. What should transition from that script, the next step there is going to be your investigation. And when you're going to investigate, this is all about asking questions. And if you pop to the next slide there, Jeff, you use your script, you get your intro going, you ask some questions. You want to learn as much from your customer as you possibly can. Down at the bottom of this slide is one of my favorite things. You have 2 ears and 1 mouth, right? You want to use those things accordingly and in proportion. So when you ask questions and you be quiet, your customer can then talk. And your customer should be talking twice as much as you are, right? That's that kind of 2 ears, 1 mouth example. So if you ask questions and you've got good directed questions that will give you good information, that's what you're going to want to focus on. So what kind of wine does the customer drink? As basic as that sounds, it's very important. If you ask, are you drinking more red wine or are you drinking more white wine? And the answer is red wines. You can go somewhere with that. Okay, great. Bob, you like red wines. Do you like, our Cabernets, or are you more of a fan of the Zinfandels? You can kind of ask a string of questions about what they like to identify the products that you're going to want to sell. What types of events or occasions do they drink for? Are they somebody who, entertains often? Is it somebody who, wine is a big part of their kind of food and what they do? And is it something where every night when they're cooking something, they've got to have that perfect wine to pair with whatever it is that they're cooking? Are they somebody who just, drinks on special occasions like an anniversary or a birthday? Understanding what types of events and occasions or what kind of things that are happening in their life and when and what they drink at that time is a good kind of line of questioning to want to ask your customers. How often are they drinking wine? Is this a weekly, a monthly, once or twice a year kind of thing? That's going to be great for identifying some ideas about what to sell to this customer. So the more questions that you can ask, the more you can learn about your customer, the better roadmap that you're going to build for yourself on what you'd like to sell them and what you should pitch them. So you've had your introduction. After your introduction, you've transitioned nicely into some questions that helped you find some information. Once you've got lots of that great information, you've asked some great questions, you should have more than enough information to be able to formulate kind of a pitch, right? And when you're pitching, you're going to want to pitch stuff that's applicable to this customer. You pitch Cabernets and blends and Sauvignon Blancs because when you ask good questions, you learned that they're a Cabernet drinker. Occasionally they'll drink the blend, and on a warm summer day, they'll open a bottle of Sauvignon Blanc. So you don't, like Donnie mentioned, you don't pitch the Chardonnay to somebody who's not a Chardonnay drinker. Or if, in that line of questioning that you had, you figured out that your customer is somebody who entertains and they've got a party scheduled for, the next holiday in 4 weeks. You should probably be thinking, well, I should probably get Bob 4 or 5, 2 or 3, however many cases of wine that Bob's going to need for whatever party, whatever he's doing when he's entertaining on that next holiday. That's always a great kind of direction to go. You do also want to pitch things for now, right? There's that sense of urgency that Donnie mentioned. So with your product, with our product in our industry, many of the wines that we're going to be talking about, these are your small, 500, 600 case productions. These are maybe some of the library wines that you pulled out that there aren't very many left of. Your product is just kind of loaded with lots of kind of sense of urgency tools. The vintage could have been so spectacular, and you need to grab some of these for your cellar, Bob, because next time I talk to you in 5 or 6 months, I may not have any of those. They sell out every year. Those are some things that are kind of built into your products that are great for when you're pitching wine. One thing I want to shout out here, and I always try to tell all my winery partners this, is that we shouldn't be focusing on the discount, right? We shouldn't be focusing on the deal or the shipping incentive or the special offer, right? every winery and every business has these things, but that's not the special things about your product, right? Your product has so many special pieces to it, things that the winemaker worked so hard to do, the vineyard work. I mean, everybody that put hands on this product, there's so much time and energy, dedicated to making these wines. And all of those aspects of your product are what you want to highlight when you're pitching wine, not something that is, a discount, because that just kind of makes everything sound a little cheaper. So again, highlighting that kind of track of your conversation, you had your introduction, you found some good information out when you asked questions, you were able to formulate a great pitch because of those questions that you asked. The one and most important piece of all of it is actually asking for the sale. Donnie mentioned it. So when you're closing, Bob, listen, I know you love the Cabernet. How many cases of the Cabernet would you like? I love that question. How many cases would you like? I don't know, Kyle, I'll just take one. Oh, okay, great. How many cases of the Merlot, Bob? How many of the Merlot would you like? That's a great question. Where would you like to ship the wines? I mean, I can ship these to your home or your office. What's best? Do you want to use Visa or MasterCard? I'm ready for those numbers when you are. We can't forget about the wife. Do we want to put a case of the white wines together for her as well, Bob? Those are all great closing questions. And you just be sure to make sure that you ask the questions, right? If you're not asking for the sale, you probably won't get it. Now, here's part of the tricky part about sales, okay? Sales in general, it's not for everybody. It's a tough gig. Otherwise, everybody would be doing it, okay? When you ask a closing question, a lot of times the answer that you're going to get is no. And you'd better be prepared for the answer that is no. Sometimes it doesn't come as no, it comes as an objection, and it comes in a different shape and size. And you're generally going to have about, 4 or 5 of your most common objections that you hear. In the wine industry, when we're doing this over the years, I always hear some of these different objections. And the objection a lot of times is just kind of a brush off. And Donnie was going to join me with some of this, and I was going to kind of demonstrate for you guys what this might sound like. Donnie, go ahead.
I don't know, Kyle. I think I need to talk to my spouse.
Donnie, hey, listen, I understand. Like they always say, happy wife, happy life, right? What does she enjoy? What does she love? What are some of her favorites? Can you tell me?
Yeah, she likes Cabernet.
She likes the Cabernets also. Okay, great. Well, listen, I know that there's all kinds of fun stuff. You got Valentine's Days in the past, but there's never a bad time to surprise your wife with a great, unexpected gift. I know my wife loves good surprises like that. So, we're not talking about 2 or 3 cases. We're talking about 6 bottles. Why don't we put something together today? We make sure we get some of those wines that your wife loves in there, and you'll be winning when this gets to the door.
I don't know, Kyle. I just have so much wine right now.
That's fantastic. What are you holding on to? You got some wines tucked away for something special? What are you holding on to your wines for?
Yeah, I have a couple of library wines I'm laying down.
Okay, nice. I sometimes get in a situation where I feel like I've got a lot of wines, and I look at my cellar, I look at my collection, and I don't want to touch, all of those bottles, because there's something they're reserved for that special occasion. And I've got some of those that obviously I want to talk to you about. But if we got a couple of these nice everyday, I talk about them as like Tuesday wines, right? Something you can open with a pizza. Let's get you maybe just something small today, Donnie. I know you've got a lot, but some of these that you won't feel so bad about opening. And you can keep your nice collection going, and you don't have to, pull out something special. Let's get you some kind of everyday bottles for your collection.
I'm really busy. I can't talk right now.
Listen, I totally respect your time. I know it's crazy right now. We're all pretty busy. This would just take a few minutes if you had a couple minutes to chat with me today.
I don't know. It's pretty hot right now to ship wine.
It's always hot, or it's always too cold. And the beautiful thing is, Donnie, that we've got some solutions nowadays, right? We've got temperature controlled shipping. It takes a little bit longer, but we can get you wine safely. We can also ship 2-day air. We've got ice packs we can put right in that box. So there's some nice solutions. We can get you your wine safely. So you're going to get objections left and right when you're doing sales. Doesn't matter what the situation is. You've just got to make sure that you're ready for those objections that you know that you're going to hear, and have a great response kind of queued up that you've practiced maybe, and you're ready to deliver when you get that objection. And if you still get no, after that, that's okay. But the wrong response is to just say, okay, Donnie, thanks a lot. I'll talk to you next time. Because if you say that, you're definitely not going to get a sale. So you can handle objections in a way that is not very aggressive, but has a little bit of kind of tenacity to it that will help you to overcome what some of those hurdles are. And remember, once you've kind of overcame that objection, you've got to ask that closing question again. So be ready to hit them with that same close and that same pitch that you'd prepared before.
So what if my winery isn't set up to do this? This is hard. Kyle mentioned it. This is a very hard job. It's a very hard business, and it's not for everyone. And hopefully you watched our last webinar where we talk a little bit about maybe finding the right employee that's in your tasting room or company that can make these calls. But a lot of wineries find this is just too hard, and you got to find the experts for any type of business, right? You wouldn't put your tasting room staff to pack and ship wine if you are happy with your shipping company. You wouldn't put your tasting room staff in to help with winemaking, right? So sometimes you have to go to the experts, and that's what we've been doing this since 2008, long time. We make 10,000 calls plus a day right now, and we actually have 3 different offices: Las Vegas, Arizona, and our headquarters here in Rohnert Park. But we're busy. I mean, we're hiring in all locations. We have lots of phone calls coming in from different wineries that need our help, and we're available. So the other thing that we're doing is webinars, and we have some software that we have upgraded and we've been working on that allows you to do webinars. It could be virtual tastings. It could be a trivia night. It could be anything that you want to do virtually while everyone is at home. And all those services are part of our package if you partner with us and let us help you make some calls and sell some wine for you.
So in fact, we're using the Zoom platform right now, which we are producing this webinar with. I know I'm not sitting in the Dry Creek Vineyards tasting room, although Kim, the owner and proprietor of Dry Creek Vineyards, asked me that today when I did a call with her. She literally thought I was sitting in her tasting room, and I assured her that I was not. So we have the ability to do some pretty amazing things technologically, and all of our clients that we have we're offering this as a free service. We can host virtual tastings for up to 10,000 people. It's a pretty amazing thing. So Don, I'm going to let you close this out.
Yeah, thanks so much for joining us today. Hopefully you learned a little bit about selling wine, and if you need help, give us a call.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks.